The movie opens with a young girl named Tessa waking up from a dream. Having recently graduated from high school, she takes a deep breath and begins packing for college. She tries her hardest to contain her excitement for her first day at Washington Central University. Her mom, Carol, and her boyfriend, Noah, soon join her and help her get ready. As Carol lists all the items Tessa might need at college, Tessa grows annoyed as she doesn't want to be treated like a child. After a whole lot of discussion, Noah offers to drive her to college and help drop things off whenever needed. Shortly after, the three of them drive to Tessa's college and start setting up her dorm. They navigate the crowded dorm halls in search of her new room, B22. When they finally open the door, Tessa is greeted by two nonchalant girls. One of them slowly gets up and introduces herself as Steph, her roommate, and then points out that the other girl is her girlfriend Tristan. Tessa nods and introduces herself in return. Steph, who has a rebellious nature, states that she was bummed to have a freshman roommate while vaping. Tristan, however, assures everyone that it'll be fun. She excitedly talks about getting Tessa into all the best places without a fake ID. Carol is immediately put off by Steph's casual vaping and Tristan's excitement about parties and fake IDs. She insists they request a room change, but Tessa reassures her that everything will be fine. While sighing, she explains that she's a responsible student who understands the importance of her education. Having no other choice, Carol reluctantly agrees, but warns Tessa to stay safe. After an emotional goodbye, she drives away with Noah. Moments later, Tessa returns to her room, where Steph asks if Carol got a little too upset because of her nature. Tessa smiles and replies that her mom is just overly protective. The two bond over books and their upcoming college life. After a brief conversation, Steph leaves to spend the night with Tristan. Meanwhile, Tessa settles into her dorm and starts texting Noah about her first class. The next morning, Tessa walks to class and quickly befriends a guy named Landon Gibson, who seems to share all her interests. They chat for a while and soon become really good friends. Later, Tessa returns to her dorm to take a shower. When she comes out, she notices all her clothes on the floor, completely drenched. She rushes back to her room in a towel and opens the closet door. That's when she looks in the mirror and notices a callous, tattooed boy reading casually on her bed. Not knowing what to do, Tessa tells him that he's in the wrong room. However, the boy, Harden, dismisses her and points out that he has the keys to the dorm. Now annoyed, Tessa asks him to leave so she can get dressed, but he smugly assures her he won't even look at her. Just then, Steph arrives and informs Tessa that Harden is a close friend of hers. She then excitedly invites Tessa to a party that night, but Harden scoffs, claiming Tessa probably doesn't even know what a party is like. Steph just rolls her eyes at this and drags Harden out of the room so that Tessa can change. A couple of hours later, Tessa goes to a nearby coffee shop to study. As she's focused on her work, she notices Harden walking in with a group of his friends. At that moment, Harden looks at her and the two share glances for quite a while. It's evident that the two are attracted to each other. Shortly after, Tessa goes to the library to catch up on her assignments. Just then, Steph runs over to her and excitedly talks about going to a party that night. Tessa hesitates, unsure about going, but Steph persists, promising it will be fun. After a whole lot of contemplating, Tessa agrees, so Steph enthusiastically drags her out of the library. They rush back to their room, where Steph helps Tessa pick out an outfit for the party. That night, Tessa and Steph arrive at the frat party. Tessa is initially intimidated by the large crowd, but tries her hardest to stay calm. She quickly joins Steph and Tristan, who introduce her to the rest of their group, which consists of Harden, Jace, Zed, and Molly, who is clearly infatuated with Harden. Noticing the chemistry between Tessa and Harden, Molly instantly becomes defensive and mocks Tessa's shy demeanor and outfit. Soon, the group decides to play a game of truth or dare. During Tessa's turn, Molly spitefully asks her to reveal the craziest place she's had sex. Feeling uncomfortable, Tessa refuses to answer, so she is dared to make out with Harden. Harden takes this chance to move closer to her, but Tessa shuts him down, claiming that she is over the stupid game. She then storms away, which causes the entire group to gossip about her weird behavior. Molly takes this opportunity to tease Harden, saying that this is his first ever rejection. Meanwhile, Tessa receives a call from Noah, who quickly realizes she's at a party. He asks if she's been drinking, and Tessa admits to having one drink. Noah is furious by this answer and taunts her for changing immediately after going to college. Frustrated by his controlling tone, Tessa hangs up and starts wandering through the house. She stumbles upon a room filled with books and begins skimming through them. Just then, Harden walks in, revealing that it's his room. He then moves closer to her and the two share an intimate moment. Thankfully, Tessa stops herself before anything happens and abruptly leaves the party. Back in her room, Tessa is bombarded with text messages from Noah and her mother, Carol, berating her for drinking and attending a college party. The next morning, Tessa attends her English class, where Harden coincidentally happens to be. When the professor asks for their views on Pride and Prejudice, the two engage in an intense debate. As their heated exchange continues, the professor intervenes, asking them to stop, but also praising their passion for the book. After class, Harden approaches Tessa and attempts to chat with her. However, Tessa calls him annoying and makes it clear she isn't interested, reminding him that she has a boyfriend. She then tries to walk away, but Landon approaches her and invites her for coffee. Tessa agrees, and then takes this opportunity to vent about Harden and his smug attitude. Landon sighs and warns her about Harden's narcissistic behavior. He explains that his mother is dating Harden's father, Chancellor Scott, so he knows Harden all too well. Later that day, Tessa joins Steph as she gets a tattoo from Jace. During their chat, Steph begs Tessa to get a tattoo as well. Tessa immediately refuses, explaining that her mother would be furious if she found out. She reveals that her entire life has been planned out by Carol, including a future wedding with Noah. Curious, Steph asks if Noah is the only guy she's ever dated. Tessa timidly admits that he is, causing Jace to chuckle quietly. The next morning, Tessa goes to a nearby coffee shop when she runs into Harden. Feeling guilty about their previous arguments, Harden explains that since he's friends with Steph, they'll likely be seeing more of each other. To keep things peaceful, he suggests they start over. Tessa is reluctant, stating she's not interested in being friends with him. However, Harden persists, and even asks to take her to a secluded lake in the woods since it's his favorite spot. Soon after, the two drive to the beautiful lake. Harden suggests they go for a swim, but Tessa hesitates since she doesn't have a bathing suit. Not wanting to make things awkward, Harden offers his t-shirt, and she reluctantly agrees. He then helps her into the lake, where they end up having a heartfelt and meaningful conversation about life and what they enjoy. The two bond really well, and as a result, start flirting with each other. They exchange longing looks before sharing a passionate kiss in the water. Afterward, Harden gives Tessa some privacy to change back into her clothes. But Tessa, who is way too attracted to him, grabs his hand and continues their romance. The two have an intimate encounter for a while, but stop before things get too far. Instead, they go to a diner where they order some food and continue getting to know each other. The two enjoy each other's company until Molly and Zed walk into the diner. Clearly jealous, Molly approaches Harden and flirts with him, much to his annoyance. To avoid any drama, Harden hands Tessa his car keys and asks her to wait for him outside. Tessa is pissed by this but agrees nonetheless. She watches as the three get into a heated conversation. Soon after, Harden walks back to her, now seemingly cool. Now confused, Tessa asks him if he's embarrassed by her. Before Harden can even respond, she exclaims that she'll just tell Noah about their growing connection. Alarmed, Harden stops her and admits that while he enjoys spending time with her, he doesn't want to date her. Clearly heartbroken, Tessa throws the car keys back at him and storms off. She runs back to her dorm room and tries her hardest not to think or dream about him. Sadly, she ends up failing miserably and realizes that she's fallen for Harden. The next morning, Tessa wakes up to a message from Noah, asking her to come outside. When she does, she finds him waiting with a bouquet of flowers. Tessa smiles and hugs him excitedly. After spending the day together, they decide to attend a bonfire near campus, where Harden and his group of friends are also present. After some singing and dancing, the group begins a game in which everyone passes a card back and forth using only their lips. When it's Tessa's turn, she tries to take the card from Jace, who deliberately blows it into her face. Wanting more, Jace tries to get closer to Tessa, but Noah intervenes and asks him to stop. Jace refuses and shoves Noah aside. Seeing this, Harden leaps across the circle and punches Jace. A violent fight ensues until Zed pulls them apart. He then attempts to calm Harden, but he just storms off, leaving Noah to console a shocked Tessa. Later, Tessa and Noah return to her dorm and watch a football game, but Noah quickly falls asleep. Just then, Tessa receives a call from Landon, who asks her to come over and help with Harden. Concerned, she rushes over only to see a huge mess in the kitchen. Landon explains that she is the only one who might be able to calm him down, since she was the reason he was so upset. Tessa nods and goes outside to the pool, where she finds Harden drinking. When she asks why, he reveals that his father is getting married. Tessa tries to console him but grows frustrated with his dismissive attitude. As she cleans up the mess around him, she accidentally cuts her finger. Now worried, Harden helps her with the minor injury and apologizes for his earlier behavior, admitting that he's a mess. He eventually confesses that he wants a relationship with her. In response, Tessa kisses him passionately, and the two end up spending the night in each other's arms. The next morning, Tessa wakes up and realizes what she'd done. She hurries back to her dorm, where Noah confronts her about her disappearance. Before she can respond, Harden appears behind her, and Noah quickly realizes the truth. Outraged, he storms away, despite Tessa begging for him to stay. Seeing Tessa's distress, Harden tries to console her, but she simply ignores him and runs into her dorm room. There, she breaks down in tears. Steph stays by her side, consoling her throughout the day. As days pass by, Tessa tries to heal and continues attending her classes. She ignores messages from her mother and Harden, and just refocuses on her studies. Eventually, Tessa decides to let loose and goes to the fraternity house where Harden lives. Once there, she admits to him that Noah has always been her best friend, the one who supported her after her father left, and losing him has been incredibly hard. However, she also confesses that being with him feels different than being with Noah. Hearing this, Harden feels relieved, so he promises to make their relationship work. From then on, the two get into a committed relationship filled with cute moments. They sneak kisses during class and spend every waking moment together. During all this, Molly and Zed carefully observe their relationship, clearly invested. One day, while Tessa is studying, she notices Harden writing in his journal. Curious, she asks about it, but Harden teasingly refuses to share. As a result, Tessa tries to grab his journal, which eventually ends with the two making out. Just then, Carol walks in and is horrified by what she sees. Furious, she demands that Tessa end things with Harden and refocus on her studies. However, Tessa refuses, so Carol threatens to cut her off financially. Still, Tessa stands her ground, causing Carol to storm out in anger. Heartbroken by her mother's reaction, Tessa spends the day with Landon, who warns her that Harden can be very dangerous, so she should take things slow. Tessa insists that Harden is different around her, and even claims that he genuinely loves her, but Landon remains cautious, hinting that Harden might be hiding something. Shortly after, Harden surprises Tessa by taking her to an apartment. Smiling, he suggests they move in together. Though hesitant at first, Tessa agrees, realizing she'll need a place to stay without her mother's financial support. This marks the beginning of their seemingly perfect life together, filled with laughter and love. The two even go on a trip to the aquarium, where Tessa claims nothing can ever change the way she feels about Harden. Whilst all this is happening, Molly gets increasingly jealous and follows the couple everywhere. The next day, Harden and Tessa attend his father's engagement party together. Upon arrival, they are greeted by Landon, who is excited about becoming Harden's stepbrother. Unfortunately, Harden doesn't share the sentiment and gives Landon the cold shoulder. During the reception near the pool, Harden is approached by his father, Ken, and Ken's fiancée, Karen. They warmly thank him for attending the party and greet Tessa cheerfully. As they leave, Harden opens up to Tessa about a traumatic incident from his childhood. He explains that his father, while drunk, angered some thugs who later came to their home seeking revenge. Since Ken was absent, they turned their anger on Harden's mother, ruthlessly abusing her. Harden adds that although his father has now become a sober man, he can't forgive him for the pain he caused his family. Tessa is shocked by this revelation, but tries to cheer him up by dancing with him. Her efforts succeed in lifting his spirits, and later, when they return home, they make love for the first time. A few days later, Tessa finishes her classes for the day and goes to the washroom where she runs into Molly. The tension between the girls is evident, as Molly constantly tries to taunt Tessa. Eventually, Molly gives Tessa an ominous warning about Harden being up to something. Tessa, however, just ignores her and walks away. One evening, while Tessa is trying to read, Harden's phone keeps buzzing with notifications. Curious, she checks it and discovers texts from Molly, asking if he has told Tessa the truth yet, and urging him to meet her at a nearby diner. Overcome with jealousy, Tessa confronts Harden about the messages. Harden, however, dismisses her concerns and prepares to leave, but Tessa stops him, demanding an explanation. Instead of answering, he asks if she trusts him. When she says she does, he leaves without further explanation, leaving her confused and annoyed. As the hours pass, Tessa grows increasingly anxious. Having had enough, she decides to take matters into her own hands. Just then, she gets a text from Jace, asking her to come to the Videodrome, where he'll tell her about Harden's whereabouts. Tessa agrees and meets Jace in his car. He informs her that Harden is at the nearby diner, prompting her to rush there. When Tessa arrives, she sees Molly, Zed, and Steph sitting together. Upon seeing her, Molly instantly starts taunting her. When Harden finally approaches them, Molly demands that he tell Tessa the truth. Tessa, already on edge, insists on knowing what is going on. Molly then reveals a video of Harden from the night of the Truth or Dare game, where he made a bet with his friends that he could make Tessa fall in love with him and then break her heart. Devastated, Tessa turns to Harden and asks if it's true. His silence is all the confirmation she needs. Realizing that everyone in the group knew about the bet but said nothing, Tessa feels betrayed. Harden tries to explain, but she refuses to listen and runs out of the diner, heartbroken. Harden follows her outside, begging for a chance to explain. However, Tessa sobs, accusing him of lying and claiming their entire relationship was a huge lie. Harden tries to protest and tells her that this was all before he actually got to know her. Inconsolable, Tessa claims that she genuinely thought he cared about her and that their relationship meant something, but it turns out that he's just a liar. Finally, she storms off, leaving Harden pleading behind her. With no other option, she takes a bus back to her childhood home. After crying all the way home, Tessa anxiously knocks on the door. When Carol finally opens it, Tessa hugs her tightly. Overwhelmed with emotion, she apologizes to her mom and tries to mend their relationship. Carol accepts her with open arms and asks what happened. Tessa simply replies that things didn't go well with Harden. Offering her sympathy, Carol suggests that Tessa consider reconnecting with Noah, who is still at soccer practice. Tessa agrees and visits Noah afterward. She apologizes for hurting him and for the way everything happened. Thankfully, Noah forgives her, explaining that people grow and change, and that's okay. Relieved, Tessa continues chatting with him, and they end up having a great time together. A couple of days later, Tessa returns to college and moves back into the dorms. However, her friendship with Steph remains strained and doesn't rekindle. Tessa applies for an internship at Vance Publishing and attends an interview after being accepted. She shifts her focus to her studies and makes sure she attends all her classes. Meanwhile, Harden stays in his room all day, depressed after the whole incident. He blasts music and reflects emotionally on the moments he shared with Tessa. His friends message him incessantly, asking for forgiveness and inviting him to hang out, but he ignores them. He remains isolated in his dorm until it is time for him to turn in his English essay. At the end of the semester, Tessa turns in her final assignment and prepares to leave with Landon. Just then, the professor approaches her and calls her aside. She explains that Harden submitted his final essay, but she believes it was meant for Tessa, not her. The professor hands Tessa the envelope, which she anxiously takes before hurrying away. Later, Tessa and Landon sit on the campus lawn as she nervously opens the envelope. Inside, she finds a photograph of a lake and a portrait of herself. Seeing this, Landon asks what the lake represents, but Tessa simply replies that it's a special place. She then reads the essay, which turns out to be a heartfelt letter from Harden professing his love for her. In the letter, he confesses that she means more to him than anything in the world, and that he can't bear the thought of losing her. After reading the letter, Tessa goes to the lake and sits at the end of the dock, wondering what her life has become. Just then, Harden walks over and sits next to her. The movie finally ends with the two looking into each other's eyes, wondering if their love was ever real.